A big congratulations to Jingdong for qualifying for playoffs at the last possible moment. They are able to stick the landing and advance to challenge the greater teams of the LPL for a chance at the title. But welcome back, everyone. We're about ready to get into our next set. Royal Never Give Up versus Topsports Gaming. And this looks to be a much more difficult match for our lower tier team, for the underdog in this matchup. Obviously, no playoff implications. RNG have already locked third in their group, and Topsports, they've been eliminated from playoffs for a few weeks now. So this is the last chance that we get to see Topsports until summer split. So until then, we're hoping that we see a good performance from them here.
Yeah, if you're TOP, you're just thinking about your lineups here. They're starting to shore up Lies a little bit more to see what he can do. We haven't seen him in quite some time in terms of the split, so it's nice to see that they're giving their top laners more opportunity instead of just Marin. Also, Goon coming back into the mid lane, so experimentation on their behalf. And I want to see experimentation from RNG because they've already locked in third place. In fact, they already know they're going up against WE in the first round of playoffs, which is incredible to even say. So you need to see if you can shore up a few more strategies for that first rounder.
These teams already rivals from the spring split finals of last year in which WE were victorious. But Royal Never Give Up, they are riding a high right now. Maybe they're going to be, we know they're facing against WE next week, but right now TOP Sports is facing across from them, and RNG look nigh unstoppable. Uzi is an inferno.
Yep, incredible in laning. So the laning phase here seems to be a massive mismatch against Chocho. So Chocho has always been the AD carry that focuses towards the team fights, but can he get to those team fights? That's a big task when you're going up against Let Me in the top lane, Karsa in the jungle, Xiaohu, of course, their mid laner, and rounding it up, Uzi and Ming.
On the other side, TOP trying to bring it back to them. Lies in the top lane, covering for Marin. Karin in the jungle with Goong making his return in the mid lane, and you just also saw Choo Choo and Phage. But TOP, they have got one heck of a mountain to climb if they want to try to get this game.
Oh, 100%. And it starts within the laning phase. So I'm wondering if TOP decides to go towards their late game team fighting focus. You can see the crowd's going wild here because they're expecting, the RNG side, a clean victory from start to finish. It has to start from the beginning, though. Because TOP cannot focus on that late game scaling portion of it. They actually have to attack early game laning phase. So I want to see a Varus priority. If Xayah and Rakan go towards them, sure. They've been a Xayah Rakan team for TOP. So I just want to see them start right from the get-go. The war has to start in minute 1.
We'll have to see if that's going to be how this breaks out. Again, this is one of the best superstar lineups in LPL history, taking on historically one of the worst teams in the LPL. We're going to see what happens in just a moment, but first, let's hear what Ming thinks about this series.
练东西应该会比较多吧，因为我们就算是那种比赛没有影响到我们排名的话，我们还是会自己尽全力啊，然后尽量赢下每场比赛。 可能会练一些新的东西。
Well, I would definitely be excited for some new champions. My name is Pulse, this is Clement, and we're about to be getting into this matchup very shortly with RNG and TOP. And I'll tell you what, yes, this is a show match, but it feels like we're in the middle of the Coliseum right now because everyone in the audience, they're waiting for blood. I'm hearing everyone cheering for RNG at the moment.
It's your last time to catch RNG before they start taking a break ahead of playoffs. So, of course, everyone is out in force and just wanting to catch a glimpse of all the All-Stars here. This one, definitely from Uzi. The sign's actually hilarious. It says that in order to play like Uzi, I actually ate so much that I now look like him.
We need to pat him back. Is that Uzi's brother? But no, we see Uzi on screen right now. And, you know, this has been a team who's had the ups and downs recently, recently dropping games to LGD and, in fact, dropping the series. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, TOP managed to pick up a win versus LGD. So, by my calculations, Clement, that means that TOP should be greater than RNG.
Well, I would say that that's simply because LGD, they have a 50% chance against everyone.
Right.
So, you know, that's just how the team rolls. I would still say RNG has a lot more cards on their hand. They're a lot more favorable. However, I do want to call Ming out is that if you're practicing and you're trying your hardest to win, I think those are actually contradictory terms. But the important thing is that they have said out loud that they will try to show some more new things, confuse their opponents in WE.
And also try and hold their hand close to their chest, because we saw that in the last couple of weeks from RW as well, not showing too much before they had obviously the slide that we've seen earlier today and the 4 series losses that they've since ensued. But RNG, maybe they'll bring some interesting champions to the table, and as we said, not give any strategies away heading into playoffs now, because they are third. They have a long way to climb if they want to try and make finals.
Talking about interesting champions, I would say Zatai would be the one to do it. However, we do have to make a note that Let Me will be playing today. He of course still has his split pushing champions. We've talked about Trundle and Rumble, and maybe he can show a couple more new ones today as well.
Of course, we look to TOP as well. Goon will be in the mid lane here, so there is no Marin today. Actually subbing in their other Korean into the mid lane. Of course, the last couple series, Goon has been subbed out because XX was benched until the end of the split, and by proxy, because of the import rule and only being able to have 2 imports from a different region, it meant that Goon also fell victim to that. So he was benched for a couple weeks, but now he's back. He's getting some field time.
Goon was definitely collateral damage in that exchange right there. They only had the Korean jungler to play, so they had to sub him out. But Goon coming back, you can feel how happy this guy is to actually play. He's had some great showings against LGD, and he was also taken to some champions that create a lot more early action. We've seen the Zoe come out from him, and also the Kasten as well. It's not always the supportive champs or the late scaling champs like the Azir and Ryze. So he's enjoying his stay so far, and I just want to see more of that.
Alright, so if we're experimenting coming into this game, what champions are kind of on the fringe that you could kind of see coming into the meta possibly for playoffs here, Clement?
Ooh, the couple of big ones, of course, we want to see Uzi continuing to excel on Xayah and Rakan. They've only played that duo 3 times in the LPL, not a lot, and this has always been a strong weakness for the team so far. If you flip up to the other side on TOP, of course, I want to see the Jin from Chocho. This isn't anything new, but he pretty much is the Jin master of the LPL, and we want to see it as much as possible.
Wow, I think that's actually a pillow. That is fantastic.
I'm not sure if that's Amazing J or Uzi.
I think it's Uzi.
Yep, it's Uzi. Yeah. It says that I will cover you from this day forward.
That is incredible. I want to know where I can get me one of those body pillows. But either way, we're about to get into game here between RNG and TOP. Let's see if RNG can make it that clean 2-0 that I know all the fans here in the arena are expecting and wanting heading into playoffs now. And I've been promised some experimental picks by Ming, so I better not be disappointed as we get into this champion select. And we're going to have a couple bans coming through, so that Zoe and the... Oh man, Zoe and Jim, both of the picks you were talking about from TOP, actually going to be banned out in first rotation by RNG.
Man, RNG want to experiment themselves, but they don't want to have TOP have any fun. They're basically taking away all of their strong Tier 1 champions here. And for TOP, this is actually fairly interesting. They're actually giving Uzi a chance to play with the Xayah, but taking away the Rakan. Usually what we see is the Xayah being taken away straight away. Now, we do have to explain this a little bit because RNG recently, they have been playing a lot of Rakan and Zac combos. Not necessarily with the Xayah, but always Rakan and Zac.
RNG will take away that Alistar to round out the bans, and Tam Kench and Swain will also join Rakan in being banned away here from TOP. And we are looking towards RNG's first pick. It's not going to be anything too spicy just yet. It should just be the Sion lock-in for RNG here.
Now we do have to note that Sion recently has been much more seen in the top lane compared to the mid lane. The 8.5 nerfs did hit him quite a bit, and he's not able to bully out other mid laners as easily. For TOP here, we see Chocho's second favorite champion, the Caitlyn, coming out.
Yeah, Caitlyn will be going down into the bottom lane, so the Uzi knows what he'll be playing into. He is currently hovering the Kai'Sa. There's definitely a giggle there from Kai'Sa and not from Uzi. So I feel like Kai'Sa's the one playing with the crowd's hearts and my heartstrings as well here. Jarvan was also the pickup for Karin in the jungle from TOP.
Oh yeah, for sure. Kai'Sa is definitely a very handsome man, playing with hearts since the LMS. I'm not going to comment on this pick until they actually lock it in, but it will be a Karma. Now what's interesting about RNG is that they can actually run the Karma in 2 different positions, and they can do it so from the bot lane as well. It's actually quite a strong lane counter, so we should treat this as a flex.
Well, sure, still waiting on Uzi's AD carry as well, but we have swapped through so many AD carries they could definitely bring up.
That's an Uzi cosplay vein as Man of the Year in front of Time magazine.
The audience has definitely been playing dress up with Uzi today, but that's Kog'Maw, so I'll have Kog'Maw into the bottom lane. We may even get kind of a shield composition come out of RNG, taking a page out of RW's bug.
Oh yeah, this definitely looks like a composition that's very familiar out of Rogue Warriors, and we do have to note that RNG, even though a lot of times they don't play the 4 Protect 1 composition, in terms of their team structure, they're actually very well suited to do so. All of their gold goes to Uzi. Uzi leads the lead with 25% of his team's gold, so they're very used to funneling all of their resources into the AD carry and let him be a hyper carry.
TOP look towards the Azir here for Gung in the mid lane, so nothing too crazy coming out here. Gangplank will be the ban towards top lane against Let Me, so they are very much seeing Sion as a potential flex pick here for Xiaohu in the mid lane.
I just love how confused the look Hart has. He's basically drafted a double flex composition on blue side, so he's kind of like wondering, hey, wait a minute, where do I actually put my pieces in?
Yeah, got to decide that one later into Vixen bans. RNG will take away that Thresh into the bottom lane and take away any playmaking potential from Phage. That's definitely something we've seen from Phage since his introduction into the team. The fact that it seems like he's leading the cause, calling the shots for the team, and a lot of that was off the back of playmaking champions like Rakan, like Thresh. So that's going to be taken away from him.
Yep, his Rakan has always been quite a highlight reel, the Thresh as well. So I haven't touched on the compositions much because I feel like RNG, they have a lot of different ways they can turn towards. So far, TOP, they definitely had the better, just straight up late game kind of team composition. What RNG need to decide is what type of bot lane they want to play. With the Karma, you can play for pushing lanes, or you could flex that towards the mid lane, and Sion can flex toward the top. So basically what I'm saying is RNG, they can take their composition in a lot of ways. They're still sitting on picks and just waiting for TOP to show their hand.
Yeah, lots of flexibility for RNG. It will be a Cho'Gath pickup from TOP, and the final ban actually from RNG as a champion I forgot honestly existed. Darius will be the final ban from RNG.
Now, Darius has been... It's actually theoretically quite a strong champion against double tanks in terms of like the jungler and the top laner. But yeah, I don't know why you banned that. Like they said, they are practicing today, and there is no Conquerors for the Darius yet. That comes out on 8.6. So probably just a throwaway ban.
Well, sure. Sejuani will go into the jungle here for Kasa, and this final pick should shed some light on where the rest of these flex picks are going. So it's all on Ming. We're all watching anxiously to see what your lock-in will be, and they're running it down to the wire. And, might actually
it's
just,
still a flex.
It is technically still a flex. However, we do have the jungle, so there should be Camille top lane, Sion mid, Karma support.
Yeah, it should go that way. Definitely, for sure. Yeah, so the Camille top lane is something that we haven't seen that much from Let Me yet. It's mainly been Zatai that has been picking the champion up, so it's probably a good chance for him to start practicing on that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Blitzcrank locked in for TOP. This is actually our second Blitzcrank of the split, and I will say that the one Blitzcrank game that we did see the other day actually won. So, Phage, best of luck to you.
Yeah. Definitely, if you're a playmaker on your team, Blitzcrank is one of those Hail Mary champions that can get the job done at any single point in the game. So against a strong team like RNG, you do need some of that RNG yourself.
Sure.
And just try to get a lucky hook there. In terms of laning phase, though, it's not a very strong champion. What TOP are looking to do is probably chain everything up with ganks and just try to sow some confusion into RNG early on so they can scale later into the game.
I just want to see the God Hand come into action here, Clement, because one pull in a late game fight and a mid game fight can honestly just change the course of the game. A random pick here and there, so it's just something that RNG have to look towards. That being said, they do have multiple targets, which if you're the claw machine that is Blitzcrank right here, you don't want to grab yourself a Sion, you don't want the Sejuani, you want one of these carries. So there's a lot of targets you don't want to hit.
Well, this champion, I think Blitzcrank, is actually really good into the Karma versus Kog'Maw type of matchup, because a lot of the times the Kog is going to try to stand right in front of the support and try to spit at everyone that way. So Blitzcrank will trim down a lot of Uzi's damage when he tries to go for the front line. What I really want to watch in the early parts of the game is, if there's a Blitzcrank on the map, there's definitely going to be a level 1 play. So that's always the exciting thing to do. There's a lot of mind games. RNG can potentially set up a trap for that. You know, put one of their big tanks in front of them, or try to counter themselves. They do have a very good level 1 themselves as well with the Camille. So the level 1 shenanigans are definitely going to happen.
So theoretically, RNG should be able to protect this one in their own jungle, looking towards TOP, but it's all on that hook. It's always going to be on the hook. We'll continue talking about it all game because it really is about that one for Phage and for TOP and try and just snag a random win off RNG. It would be really nice for them heading into the next split. But for now, though, we're about to head onto the Rift for our final game of the night, RNG versus TOP. As you can hear, the fans are out in force for RNG today. Pretty much full up all with RNG fans.
They're still going.
I think they're actually just going for player chance now. We're just going down the line for RNG.
Oh, yeah. Recently, my biggest relief is the TSM guy has suddenly disappeared from the arena. Probably because they aren't in playoffs anymore. But, yep, that has been the case. We have been getting a lot more prolonged chance, and especially player chance as well.
Yep, unforeseen circumstances. Here's Uzi on the old Pugmore.
This is so funny. Just watch the way Uzi's positioning himself on the map. Typically, when I see that type of positioning, it's usually some guy like checking up his social media. But that positioning underneath his tower is actually legit because the enemy team has a Blitzcrank. So don't follow Uzi because he's doing it. Do it because the enemy team has a Blitzcrank.
Yeah, be aware of that. I can definitely say I've been guilty of that in the bottom lane, just sitting at my tower. My jungle is pinging away. Help me on red buff. But yeah, good reason for Uzi to play it safe in the early game because we were expecting maybe a level 1 play from TOP, which they didn't go for in the end. There's not going to be any advanced vision from either of these two teams. We can go ahead and take a look at some of the keystones. It's going to be Aftershock here for Phage. Makes a whole lot of sense. You just hit the hook and then you get Aftershock.
Yep, pretty standard throughout the board here. I would say only the Camille has a bit of different choices there. We've seen press the attack for Camille as well. Level 2 gank coming in from Karin.
It could be a level 2 gank. It could be him going to his jungle. He's definitely looking for it now. Here's the hook. The hook misses, and Karin just says hello to Uzi. Unfortunately, the hook missing means that he won't be able to go for the play.
Yep. Bit of anticlimactic cheese right there. I do want to talk a little bit about why Jarvan has been picked so much in the LPL when it's really fallen off hard in other regions. It's because of the level 2 cheese gank. If you watch the map on the top left corner in the river, RNG actually dropped a first ward because we've been having so many red side Jarvans do the level 2 gank into the mid lane. If you watch Xiao's positioning, he was slanting off to the right side as much as possible. It's been happening over and over in LPL, and it's almost been perfected to a science where you can get the flash from the mid laner very early on.
What a time to be alive when you're talking about cheese being perfected into a science. But for
That's
sure,
what King Zone is.
We've seen it a bunch, man. We've seen all of this Jarvan over the split, and you're right, it is the level 2 gank, and we've actually seen repeat ganks after the level 2. So it's just like, your level 2 gank didn't work, okay, let's gank again immediately after, and sometimes it catches people off guard.
Oh wow, I just watched the runes from Phage right there, and it's the ultimate cheese combination. He has the minion dematerializer for instantly getting objects out of the way, and also the Hex Flash as well. So Phage, you know, Ming might talk a lot of cheese talk, but Phage is the one bringing it to the table.
He absolutely is, and that's definitely a bit of a throwback. You remember the good old Smite Blitzcrank, so you can get the minion out of the way. It's essentially the same thing coming out here, but it's without the summoner spell, so maybe even more efficient. That hook just going wide of Uzi. Very good on looking for those dodges in lane. Honestly, of all the players, Uzi is one of the ones with the best twinkle toes in the LPL. Very difficult to try and lock this guy down, but maybe Ming will be susceptible.
Yeah, very good footwork there from Uzi, but we did see the reason why Blitzcrank was picked into this lane. In this type of matchup, we usually see the Kog'Maw standing in front of the support, and that's why Blitzcrank can sometimes work miracles in that type of scenario.
We get a chance now to take a look at top lane before looking back at bottom lane once again. Uzi, go ahead and take a look at some of his stats. KDA high, of course. All his stats have been fantastic.
666, literally the devil.
Wow, that means more in China, by the way, because 666 is something you say if someone makes a sick play, like 666 is like cool play.
It actually means sly in Chinese. But let's see if Lies can get off.
Ooh, good flash. He'll be out of there, but the hook shot follows. Lemmy still looking for this kill to flash out by Costa as well, and Lies underneath his tower. He has the tankiness out from the Aftershock, and he survives.
Not enough damage, keeps his potion running the whole time through, and that was a very good flash coming out from Lies, actually dodging the Q coming out from Karsa.
Yeah, he didn't have the aftershock. Karsa had the aftershock. It was the grasp of the Undying coming out there, that little bit of healing. Seeing the fan vote. I mean, this is no surprise that RNG is obviously winning this one. Lai's going to teleport back into top lane. It's actually gone for the double Darn Star, picking up the shield and the ring here just for the regeneration in both respects.
Well, that was changing his mind incredibly fast. Knew he probably didn't have the gank. No Krugs there, and moves towards the top. Moves towards his own side of the jungle. I'm talking about Karin, of course.
Yeah, didn't go for it in the end, and Phage hasn't really hit a hook yet. And I will say that when you have a Thresh or a Blitzcrank, it always comes down to those early hooks. You know, if the first one lands, you're like, we're in for a game where he's going to hit every hook under the sun. But we haven't seen one hit yet, so it might just be that game where Phage may not hit any at all.
Oh, come on, don't jinx him like that. The
I'm just saying, like, correlation, it happens.
The great thing about Blitzcrank is all you need is that one hook in a crucial moment, and you can start winning the game. So it doesn't, I don't care if he misses everything in the laning phase. It comes down to team fight, one hook gets Uzi, and the game is over. I do want to pay some attention to the way that Xiaohu is building his
Yeah, he's got
Scion.
Raptor's Cloak right now.
Yep, so he's going for the first item. Item Banner of Command already. Not waiting for his Abyssal Mask. Straight cheese.
We saw that last series as well. We saw Doinby coming out of that tank Scion. He picked up the Zrot as well on top of the Banner of Command. See if that comes out of Xiaohu here today. But it's also really nice into AP matchups because they just can't deal with the minion whatsoever. Here comes Carter into the bottom lane. He is level 5 currently, so doesn't have the ultimate to make this lane gank happen. He's about to be revealed by this ward as well. So TOP have complete information. Should not die to this one.
Yep, this type of gank is usually what I call the I have nothing to do, so I might as well stay here type of gank.
Right, right.
Probably does know there are wards around that area, but if you look at his jungle, bottom side is cleared. He's just moving from the bot side to get to some of those scuttles in the river.
Maybe look towards the bottom side once again before recalling, because he will have a bit of gold to spend here. So just killing some time before he can go back to base. Mid lane, just the obnoxiousness of Scion you can see. Currently in this Azir matchups, being pushed in constantly, being harassed constantly, and Gung is just having to sit as a tower and wait for the minions to come to him.
Yep, they don't have vision control over the bot side, not willing to try any hooks there. If we talk about the mid lane a little bit, 8.5 did have a bug fix for Scion, so now his hitbox has been reduced to the actual size on his E, on the Roar of the Slayer.
Right.
So it's much harder to put damage on the enemy mid laner, and that's why we've been seeing a lot less Scion into the mid lane, and even in like the playoffs for the LCK.
But for now, it's still here. It's still alive and kicking in the LPL. Karin has just started off this red buff, but Ming is about to see it. He poked his head out. I feel like Karin probably saw that one. Ming's going to chase him off this red buff here as Karsa also coming into his bottom jungle. So Karin will flag drag over the wall and go back to his own jungle.
All right, that play, there was something wrong about Karsa taking away Scion's blue buff. So Scion's mana costs are so low that their junglers don't even pity them without blue. They're like, you don't need this. They're taking it away, and he can outpush an Azir.
And now he's moving to the top lane. He wants to make the gank happen on to Lai's, but Lai's already walking back to his tower. So Xiaohu will be here for quite some time. I believe he just cleared a control ward in the bush as well before heading back towards that mid lane. And top lane, pretty much gone even so far.
Yep, so Lai's is one of those tank players. We've only really seen the Swain be a bruiser from him. I think it's a good chance to...
Ooh, forcing the flash in mid lane. That was really good timing there from Gung. If he didn't flash, he was going to get locked down by all the CC.
Yep. No hesitation there on Karsa as well, going over the river, doing the QR combination that we see so often on Sejuani. Going back to my points on Lai's, he really is more of a tank player, so it's an interesting chance to let me try to pull out his champion pool a little bit more, have like a punching bag for him to practice on, and try to get his Camille rolling as well.
Yeah, definitely. But when you compare Let Me to the person behind him right now on the roster, Zatai, you're just like, well, don't you want the diversity of saying like, well, this guy plays tanks, this guy plays carries. As we look towards a gank in the bottom lane, here comes Carson once again, doesn't have the ultimate, but they are still chasing down Phage and Chocho. He flashes away and in comes the bus, that is Scion, and he says hello and walks back towards the mid lane. Currently he's being blocked though by TOP, but he's going to run them up river alongside Karsa.
Yep, this will be a little bit awkward for him to get back into lane. I want to see how TOP tries to slow them down a little bit. Does look like they are just going to push this wave out.
And it should be okay in the end, clearing this one away. And Phage, he's quite low. He probably would like to go back to base in the near future, honestly, and just not get killed by Uzi, because that would definitely defeat the point of trying to get those hooks in the first place. But to go back up to this point, I was talking about, you know, like Let Me versus Zatai. Instead of just focusing on one class, they're just both diversifying. We're seeing Zatai on tanks and carries, Let Me doing the same thing. So it's interesting to see this happen between the two top laners.
Yeah, the way I see the scenario between Let Me and Zatai is Zatai's the one that has the experience and also the laning power, but he's been around for so long. He's one of the starting players for the LPL, and I really see them having Zatai to groom up Let Me for the future. That's the way I see that interaction going. So it's not worth it to have Let Me just play the tanks. It's also very valuable for him to get experience from Zatai and know how to play the carries as well.
Now, if you think about it as well, RNG can only take one of their subs to internationals as well. So if you're looking towards the jungle, you want a difference between MLXG and Karsa. Maybe that's where you're looking towards an RNG instead of the top lane, you know, subbing Zatai in and Let Me at the same time. So you're right, it does seem like we're going in that direction for RNG, seeing more of Let Me play, and also him on this Camille this game. We haven't really seen a whole lot happen in the top lane yet, but we'll see if he's... yeah, that's actually true. We're 11 minutes in, we have no kills, so definitely a bit of a shocker for me. I was expecting more of a bloodbath for these two teams.
If we talk about the compositions a little bit, TOP does outscale RNG in terms of the late game team fighting. What RNG need to look for is for them to prop up Let Me as a viable split push option. He doesn't need to win the 1v1, but he needs to outpush that.
Well, Karsa just turning the corner right into two members of TOP. That's going to chase them down here, land the ultimate down onto that job, and here comes Mingen from the bottom lane, and everyone is getting involved in this fight now. Soulflare comes down onto Phage. He's getting walked down. He doesn't have the flash, and he will be taken out for first blood.
Great catch on the roam right there coming from RNG. Their support was roaming as well as Phage. So even though Phage thought he had the jump on it, RNG still followed up incredibly fast, and they got the pick for it.
Yeah, nice little rotation there from Ning as well, out from that bottom lane, really securing that kill there for RNG. And that first kill goes over to Xiaohu, no less as well. He's already finished his banner of command, but he's going to be accelerated towards his second item.
Yep, for RNG, we do see more of a mid-game focused composition. Uzi is going for the Guinsoo's Rage Blade, and also Xiaohu in the late game on Sion doesn't have enough damage compared to Azir. We saw that in the last match as well. If this goes late, Azir is a much better team fighter, better late game.
Well, the game is definitely heating up now. Trapped in the Hextech ultimatum, Xiaohu lands a very easy ultimate, and Lies just stands there and accepts his fate. That's going to be a kill over to Let Me.
Yeah, and that's exactly the person they want the kills to go to early. Let Me, this Camille pick, even though it's a very strong split pusher, it does need a bit of setup time. You can't just not gank for it and assume that the Camille is going to grow up fine. So gank's going towards the top lane. They can go for the RNG's patented 1-3-1 split push later on.
And this is the worry now, because you are looking towards the 1-3-1 in the mid game. You're also looking towards RNG being very much a lane dominant team. Like win lane, win game is definitely like the RNG motto. Right now, I would say like Invictus Gaming, one of the teams who are definitely trumping them in that regard. One of the reasons why IG is right at the top of the LPL standings. But if you look towards RNG, that's always been their style, just having the extra star power to overpower your opponents. And we're starting to see a bit of that now in this game versus TOP. You know, this is what I expected coming into this game, like getting those lane kills, getting that early momentum, and snowballing it into the mid game.
That's always a very interesting point, because we've seen RNG in good and bad times, and when they're bad, it's usually because they're very sluggish in the lanes. Like maybe only Xiao is, or maybe only bot lane is winning. What I would actually say that RNG's best compositions are the ones that they have a lot of initiative. If you look at the comp they have now, 3 very good engages coming out from Karsa, Let Me, and also Xiaohu. And if you looked at their past games where they really start to show form against Rogue Warriors, it has been about Rakan and Zac as well. So as long as RNG have 2 or 3 really, really good engages, I typically feel good about them. They're not a very defensive team, macro-wise. I don't think they read other people's offensive as well. But when they are on the play themselves, I think they do much better.
And when they get to go first, that seems to be when RNG get ahead. You're absolutely right there. Ming heading back into this bottom lane. I'm going to have the first one of the first recalls out from Uzi. I feel like he's probably got enough gold now to complete his Guinsoo's. He's pretty much farming on the clock right now. There you go. Guinsoo's has been completed. We're 14 minutes into this game, and he has 140 farm. Though on the other side, Chocho is doing just the same at 150. Meanwhile, Karsa has just located Karin in the river, just saying, get out of here. This is my territory now. Karin will go towards his Merc Walls, but there is now pressure in this mid lane. And Xiaohu's moving towards the jungler.
Yep, and that's what we usually see. If Jarvan doesn't get a cheesy early gank off, then the Sejuani will start to run the Jarvan off of the map. However, you still really want a Jarvan with this type of composition with the Azir and the Caitlyn, just because his standard will give you 50% extra attack speed in the late game. So it's more than just engage, it also amplifies the damage the team deals as well. Very good pick there.
Yeah, the synergy is there for sure. It's just about getting to late game now versus a team like RNG. Here comes Xiaohu into the top lane, though he is out of mana. Maybe he was searching for a honey fruit, though he only managed to eat one of those berries, so he's going to be low on that one. Meanwhile, in the bottom side,
danger.
Phage and Karin are coming into this one. Ming already puts the shield onto Uzi, so won't have the extra speed up here, and the teleport respectively from both teams. Flag drag lands onto both of the bottom laners, and Uzi, he's already down. Ming flashes away, another flash out from Karin, and he'll finish off his prey with the Cataclysm. Here comes Lies falling down. Let Me heading into this jungle. He's got the support of Carcer coming down, but he turns around, he doesn't want any of this, and Let Me will escape.
That was a great play from TOP. Their players actually circumvented the ward line being placed from RNG, going through the mid lane ramp where they had a control ward there, and also a bit of miscommunication on RNG. If you saw the teleport, it was actually a double teleport, but Let Me chose to finish while Xiaohu chose to stay in lane. Xiaohu was the better decision, of course. They had no chance of salvaging the situation.
TOP look towards that bottom lane there, see if they can get some extra damage down onto that tower. Got it down to around half. Let Me is there to sweep up the rest of the minions, and the bottom lane will return here for Uzi and Ming. But getting his first 2 kills there will be very nice for TOP. One goes on to Karin, one goes on to Chocho as well, so puts him ahead of Uzi in terms of gold.
Yep, it also puts him on a favorable power spike now. He does have the static shift. He can keep this lane pushed in for more, and if they can keep all of RNG's lanes behind, then even if RNG does have a very good middle game, they might struggle to find chances to use it.
Really what we wanted to see from TOP. Glad to see them getting their feet wet, getting out into the field here. Chocho also comes in with that extra gold being spent in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, in mid lane, Let Me is still looking for ganks to happen, see if he can open up the map for RNG. Caster's on his way to the bottom lane, also roam out from Xiaohu, so pressure being exerted now into the bot side of the map. And Phage, Chocho, they're very much aware of that fact, though he's just hooked someone. Who is it? It's Ming over the wall, and Phage not really feeling this fight right now.
Yep, RNG is looking for the 4v2 in the bot lane, however TOP are defending very well.
Now with Karin here and the teleport out from TOP, feeling a lot more confident. Phage wants to get in range, but the overdrive didn't quite get him up there, and Carcer will be able to get away on all fours.
Yep, he was looking for the teleport into the wall combo there, just trying to keep all of RNG members inside their own jungle. Unfortunately, unable to do that, and RNG get out pretty free.
Yeah, they're okay. But now there's not enough burst behind that Blitzcrank to kill people, but in the top lane, Lies also comes back as well. He moved to the bottom lane to try and assist with that one. We will be able to collect this rest of the minion wave. Well, Carcer's once again found Karin, and this is what you're talking about, pushing Jarvan out of the areas where he's trying to be effective.
Even though Jarvan does have the bigger weapon, his mid-game is not as good as the Sejuani. And if you look at the lane control RNG has, they do have a lot of control with the Scion into the Azir matchup. What they're looking to do now is create that highway where they can roam towards the bot lane and get that 4v2 play down in the middle. Down in the bot, sorry.
Down the middle of bot lane.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on your screen, you can see LGD versus Invictus Gaming right now, the other game that is happening simultaneously to this one. And the Invictus game has already picked up game 1, and currently Jaculov is just going off on the tear and murdering everybody on LGD. So most likely going to be Invictus Gaming win here, though. As you can see, LGD definitely fired back in terms of kills in this game.
Oh yeah, LGD known as the Suicide Squad because they die so often. Yeah, but wow. They have been having some really good games. Intruder, of course, has been a big standout for them. And if you look at the scoreline, it was 14-20. So definitely some fights still left in them against even a good team like Invictus Gaming.
You know, some of the names that the Chinese community have for the teams when translated into English are phenomenal.
I do need to correct myself. LGD is actually known as the 50-50 team, Kai, because nobody has a 100% chance against them. And the Suicide Squad is actually FPX. They die the most. And the God of Death is PYL.
It's PYL. Wonderful. Carter getting called out. There's a Cataclysm. He's locked in the cage once more. And Ming and Uzi to try to provide cover fire, but they can't make it happen, and Chocho sends him packing.
Karsa overstepping right there. If you look at his lanes, they were all pushed in, and they were very slow to rotate towards him. So we can see the intent from Karsa. He is trying to open up that highway, but doing so without his teammates.
Lemmy finds the ultimate onto Jarvan, and a follow through
Great
from
ball.
over the walls. Xiao who gets the kill, and Goong now trapped in the middle of this, and Lemmy will find the second.
Great rotations there coming out. Let Me sneaking down towards the bot lane undetected. Lies probably didn't give them a good ping right there.
Unfortunate. Multiple kills going over to RNG there, and also an influx of gold over to Let Me. It's one of the worst things that you really want to happen if you're TOP, because that split push is going to be all the more deadly once we hit the middle parts of the game.
Oh, did he land the hook?
I looked
no.
like it. No, it didn't happen. We cut away at the vital moment. I think it may have just hit the minion there.
Now, this observer is really good with his cliffhangers.
Alright, Phage is on his way back to base, and the bottom lane has done a pretty good job, I would say, overall of your RNG at surviving. Yes, they've both died once, but that was everybody dogpiling into the bottom lane, and we can once again see that fantastic ultimate out from Let Me.
Yep, we can see the frantic pings coming out from Karn as well, pinging onto the Camille. Why is he here? A bit unfortunate there, but very good roam for Let Me in the top lane, and it will allow him to start his split push.
He's picked up the Triforce, he's got the makings of a lifesteal item as well in terms of his Titanic Ravenous Hydra. That's the one I wanted to talk about. See the damage. I don't know what this means actually.
So this is the fan support. This is probably a website project for the LPL, and to no surprise, Uzi does have the most fan support.
Yeah, shocking. We could even see it from the audience, everyone holding up those Uzi signs. Karin getting caught in the jungle, but Phage is here to support, and just behind him, Goong and Lies as well. So definitely didn't want to bite off more you can chew with your RNG, and they choose to back away. Zhao Hu was also thinking about rotating towards there. Actually, Ming is going to go back towards the bottom lane, so it doesn't seem like RNG feel too threatened. That being said, Baron is definitely a thing on the board. We are 21, almost 22 minutes into the game. It feels earlier into the game. I was expecting still to see Herald there, honestly, but we've actually played quite a lot of game time so far.
Yep, it was a bit of a slow early game. If we look down the gold advantage here, actually Chocho does have the slight lead, but on the other hand, Let Me is getting completely out of control. And we could really enjoy the way RNG does play the 1-3-1 split out. A lot of times they actually will hold lanes to farm. So if the enemy groups up and they can't find a pick, then it actually punishes them even further. It puts them even further behind. And that's what we saw with Uzi in the bot lane. Holding his waves, not pushing it out immediately, and just CSing them one by one.
Soaking up more and more farm, and eventually just trying to output more damage in the late game. That being said, in this one, TOP had two major damage threats on their side in the form of Caitlyn and Azir. So in the late game, hopefully, you're expecting them to be able to match RNG, at least in a team fight. But you're right, RNG will try and pick them apart before that really becomes an issue.
This is quite interesting because if TOP can't hold the ramp next to Baron, they can try and catch someone from RNG, snatch them into the trap, and if they get someone like Camille or Kog'Maw, then they could completely reverse the outcome of the fight. So I don't think the gold lead actually means as much as it does in terms of this scenario. RNG need to be very careful about the formations they place.
Goong moving into the side lane, he's going to be one of the splitting factors here for TOP. He is, of course, rocking the teleport in this game since he has the unsealed spellbook, so we'll be able to move to those side lanes for his team. And Zhao Hu will probably be the one to meet him as well. So just eyeing his future lane opponent in the top lane. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, we've rotated Uzi and Ming here just to try and soak up even more farm for himself. He's now picked up 2 items. He's picked up the rapid fire cannon on top of his Gwynsu's.
The rapid fire is more of a backline item, so we usually see the Hurricane being placed, and the difference between these two items is that with the Hurricane, if the enemy team presents a stable front line and you go front to back, then the Hurricane does more damage. But in terms of the fire cannon, what it allows you to do is it's more effective item if you're playing a 1-3-1. It's also more effective if you think your primary targets are going to be on the back line.
They're going to be a lot more safe for sure, and because he is essentially the only pure damage threat in RNG when they get to those team fights, of course he will be wanting to get on top of Goong, get on top of Chocho as well. Karsa still controlling the river, will be able to take away the crab here as Ming is supporting him, so that constant support and jungle duo just getting the job done.
I definitely do see the Fire Cannon as being an adaptation towards the 1-3-1, but let's see how Xiaohu gets out of this.
Karin lands a knock-up, and I feel like he may just walk away, not before hitting Karin and just moving back to the minion wave. So he did not care at all there was a jungler there.
Yep, you know, even though the Blitzcrank, this game does have the Optimus Prime kind of skin, the big truck, but he's actually going up against a real Transformer. So no fight there. He's respecting Xiaohu.
I was wondering where that one's going, but I got it in the end.
I got it from Dom.
Yeah. Checks out. Lai's going to beat Let Me in the bottom lane, but you can see Let Me is actually able to chunk through that health bar from Cho'Gath, and he has his own sustain now with that Ravenous Hydra, so we'll hopefully be able to get some chunk damage onto that tower using that tactical precision, or precision protocol, I should say. 25 minutes into this one, RNG are controlling the top side, just roaming around in this death squad, securing this vision, and you can see there's the poke combo out from Let Me, and over time, this is going to chunk Lai's down, and it's going to chunk the tower.
I don't think you want to pick that up, Phage.
No, he turns around, immediately finds a Scion in the bush, but they don't have a hook on their side, and Phages, unfortunately, will miss.
It's a good call from RNG to keep their entire team composition split up. Blitzcrank, of course, is a lot weaker when he has to fight a 3v3. He would much prefer have the teams have standoff type of scenarios where it's a 5v5, but at one hook, I could instantly kill one of your carries. If it's a 3v3, if I hook someone, then usually I don't have enough damage follow-up to actually secure down a kill right there. So I do agree that with RNG here, splitting up the map, taking away power from the Blitzcrank is a pretty good way to go.
And it's working as well. Lemmy's already put a bunch of damage down onto that tower after pushing that Cho'Gath out of lane. So over time, this bottom lane from RNG will start pushing, continue to push, and TOP will bleed out from the bottom lane just by itself. So it's something that they have to be cognizant of, and the hooks really just haven't really been finding their mark. I will say in that circumstance, he probably didn't want to pull a tank towards his AD carry anyway. So just about finding those vital hooks on the right targets at the right moment.
That's how duos come apart. When you start hooking the tank line right next to you. We've actually seen that happen a couple times. I remember the game LGD played against TOP. So what happened was Intruder took Lies into the back line, and Lies was on Swain. He was like, ah, the Fae! And just finished off everyone. So that does happen in the LPL quite frequently.
It does, yeah. In an effort to try and make plays, unfortunately. I do like the fact that Phage has held onto some of his minion dematerializers in the bottom lane here. He was using a lot of them to try and land with his hooks, but because of the banner of commands on the opposite side, he was able to neutralize Xiaohu's last minions. So later on, that will definitely be useful, especially if RNG ends up picking this Baron. And that being said, TOP are just trying to protect this ramp. Flash forwards, flash response from Ming.
It's a great opportunity for TOP. If you look at the map, Let Me is nowhere near threatening one of their towers, so they group up preemptively as 5 and try to find that big pick. This is how you want to use Blitzcrank. Group up and try to find picks.
And now bot lane completely exposed. TOP essentially sacked bottom lane to try and make that play happen. And Let Me will get essentially a free tower as he is continuing to push. He's not going to stop. He can get out with the hook shot very easily, and Lies has to walk it all the way from mid lane to the bottom lane. He needs to keep his TP.
Definitely an issue right there. It's not the most exciting style for RNG to play, but if you watch their domestic games, a lot of the times they do rely on this 1-3-1 style, try to suffocate the other team out. I will say, however, in the recent matches they've had, RNG have never been really successful in keeping the other team away from a team fight. They've always given the other team at least 1 or 2 opportunities. So it's a good chance to see if RNG can play a clean game from top to finish, just like Rad said on the analyst desk.
That is a hope, though. Let Me did have to burn the flash in the bottom lane as Lies look to aggress on him, so that will be definitely detrimental to his split pushing ability, though he is now onto the dragon here and is very close to his Starix Gauge. So another power spike on the horizon for this Camille. And you're right, just let's see if RNG can play this out cleanly, because the early game has been pretty good. They've gained control over the game, and they've also locked down Goong in the top lane. He's going to be cleansing out of this one before Xiaohu puts some damage on towards him. Here comes a teleport out from Lies in the top lane, and Ming, he's located a target, or rather the other way around. Phage eventually finds the hook. Karsa looking towards Lies now, but this is just a ball of health and tanky stats that they just cannot get through. 1 versus 4, maybe they'll find some damage on towards him, but he is looking for the chase. Flag, drag, doesn't quite find Xiaohu, but there's the knock-up as well, following from the silence, and Xiaohu finally gets the opportunity to flash over the wall. Karin, Lies, still chasing after the team. The rest of TOP arrives on the scene. There's knock-up once again onto Karsa, looking for the assassinate onto Goong, but he finds the heal. He's able to back away from the ultimate. Meanwhile, ultimate down The Living Artillery gets the kill onto Lies. Meanwhile, Phage looking for the hook, but it doesn't land onto Uzi. And it's the full health Cogmore. Well, it was until Chocho gets a bunch of damage on top of him. He has to flash away. He's dead. And Karin trying to get it out alive now as Let Me is still chasing him down. He has the hook shot coming in a couple seconds. That's not how the ability works. And Karin will get out alive.
You would think those hooks would hurt quite a lot if they hit you, but unfortunately that's not the case. However, still props to Let Me. He really saved that team fight in the end, coming in from outside of vision to force the ult down, try to scatter the opponents, and he put so much damage onto the enemy team with that Ravenous Hydra right there. That really changed the entire situation from RNG. You know, I said RNG have never been able to actually cleanly close out a game. It wasn't me jinxing them. It just happens every single time. But they do manage to get out of the situation right here. Uzi and Ming, of course, sitting on wards, trying to follow up with their teammates, catches into the top lane, doesn't work out well from them. Ming is a sacrificial lamb, and this fight goes on for quite a while, but what I really want to watch is how Let Me does salvage it. Props to Lies as well. He hit all of his ruptures so far in the team fight. A lot of good work there, keeping the team locked down. This is going to go on for a while, but let's just watch Let Me onto the back line. He's waiting for it, waits for both of them to get down, pretty much takes Goon out of the fight, also gets Chocho as well. This really diverts the entire attention away from the front line, and then RNG are able to step back into the fight, take Lies, who has been performing so well in the team fight, and finally clean up on Chocho.
Unfortunate from Chocho as well. He stepped forwards and it was a nice headshot onto the Cogmore, but it put him completely out of position. So he ends up dying. RNG secure the Baron, and now they're pushing in multiple lanes at the same time. Bot lane now being sieged out from Let Me, and the entire team from TOP is here to try and defend.
Yep, they definitely have to. The 5-man from RNG as well. I assume all of them will have Baron outside of Ming. They don't have the siege potential compared to TOP, so you know they're pushing it in. But what they want to do is let TOP group up to deal with the waves, and then spread it into other lanes. They want maximum usage of their Baron buff.
Jiahu also used the banner on a bottom lane there as well, so we'll be waiting for that one to come up. And TOP are trying to meet RNG as they look for this 1-3-1. It will be Jiahu moving into the top lane now, escorting this minion wave to the tower. Mid lane, we've got 3 set up. Kasa, Uzi, and Ming holding down the fort. Here comes the engage. It's going to be Blitzcrank getting caught out on this one, and Let Me thinking about moving in here, but doesn't really want the brawl to happen.
Yeah, the big miscalculation from RNG's side was that Gung was actually behind the play. They did expect the Azir to be towards the top lane, but good idea from Gung to actually try and anticipate the play coming out from RNG.
Though, that gave a lot of time for Jiahu to move into this top lane onto that tower and take it almost down onto that inner tower as well. So RNG still the benefactors off the back of that play, pushing in the mid lane and the bottom lane. Just eventually going to be taking out these towers bit by bit, push by push, and RNG is splitting them apart.
This is the truth about the 1-3-1, is that as long as you have all 3 lanes past the river, the enemy team will have to give up an objective to make a pick. And the question really is, what can TOP line that pick up with? The way you break a 1-3-1 in this late game scenario is you want the pick plus the Baron. So they're pretty much just biding their time, waiting for the next objective to really come up before they go all in 5-man into one of the lanes, usually into the mid lane where they had the 3-man is, and try to snowball off that.
Well, maybe step 2 isn't there because there is no Baron on the board currently. Step 1 is there, and I feel like it's easier to execute step 1 because you have Blitzcrank. You know, Blitzcrank he was built for this day. He was built to find that single pick in the mid game, but unfortunately, we haven't really seen the Blitzcrank come to its full potential, and RNG, this strangulation over the game has worked incredibly well for them, taking out all of the outer turrets, only the base towers remaining now. They get to go back to base and see the amount of farm that everyone's picked up, especially Uzi. He's currently over 400 farm, and he's on 3.5 items.
Oh yeah, the 404 website not found. He's going to be deleting a couple of fools later on, so we will keep a very close attention on that, going for the IE. Next at the items. Bit of a hybrid between the SMLZ build and the usual builds that we do see. It's really important to remember that we don't see Wit's End just because he is pretty much the sole source of magic damage on his team.
He's gone for that Blade of the Rune King, now moving into a bit of crit damage for himself as well. And TOP, well, they're just trying to spread out and look for a potential play. Phage sitting in shadows, sitting in fog of war, seeing if he can just land that hook onto unsuspecting prey. But none of the squishies are making themselves known, putting themselves out there and allowing Phage an in. He just has his flash now, so there is playmaking potential here, but pretty much everyone from RNG, yes, everyone from RNG actually have their own flash. So if it gets to the situation where it's down to reactions, they should be able to get out of there.
It's a very good preemptive play from LetMe. He actually didn't have vision of the enemy team moving in, but he backed away anyway, just because the team was already getting something in the bottom half of the map. So this is something that a lot of LPL teams, even though it sounds really basic, does struggle with. They're 1-3-1s, they don't have the coordination with their top lanes and with the rest of the team to really pull it off. What you really want to remember on League of Legends is if you're getting something somewhere on the map, then just let that thing be, you know? Like, be happy with that point on the map and play defensive elsewhere, and that's what LetMe is doing.
Okay, well, we're getting later into the game here, Clement's 35 minutes in. Of course, we look towards some of the Gathering Storm users, especially Chocho, as Phage is looking for a pick here. But Clement, you were telling me earlier you've cracked the formula towards Gathering Storm.
Yep, and I'm happy to tell you the formula after these plays.
Yeah, maybe a poor time to talk about it. Whoa, massive engage coming out, and Chocho explodes there in the middle lane, followed by Karen. And RNG are looking to push this one all the way into the base. They managed to get the lockdown onto Lies as well. Goong has to jump away, but he's interrupted by Xiao, and that's huge damage out from LetMe, almost finding the instant assassination. Follows up onto Phage, and living artillery for the snipe. Uzi, he's not done. There's the final pick in the end, and actually kills him on the spawn pad. Phage, he gets his revenge.
Phage is typing now. Blitzcrank was definitely a worthwhile champion. He's doing the dance onto Uzi's body right now. But man, that was the sickest 1-3-1 payoff I have ever seen. The speed that LetMe and Xiao were able to collapse onto that mid lane, they basically made a Chocho sandwich.
Well, Phage, it's on you. Can you find a hook onto someone onto the spawn pad? Because that's the best you can hope for right now as RNG collapses into the mid lane,
Phage, one more.
destroy TOP, and we'll take game 1 in this series.
That was a very slow and steady game from RNG, but an explosive finish at the end. And finally, we see Uzi crack a smile. All serious faces today for RNG, but at the end, I feel like they can feel proud and they had some fun with the final execution.
They definitely can, and it really was watertight from start to finish there from RNG. Yes, a couple times it looked a little bit dicey. You know, the boat was definitely rocking, but there weren't really many holes for TOP to really exploit. You know, aside from that one hook onto the Falcon there, that was probably the one glimpse of hope, but the game was already over.
I would say the red brush was still a major point of concern for RNG. This has been happening repeatedly for their team, but you know, that's just one blemish on this game so far. I think all of their members were terrific in their game, and they just played a very steady game, a very controlled game, and they got what they wanted for their strategy. They got the 1-3-1 rolling with LetMe, with Xiaohu, and they were also showcasing how you could get the payoff for this composition, how you could transfer that lanes and the enemy team being split up to make that into a great play, a great collapse.
And that's key, you know, the fact that LetMe is able to do the most damage in the game, be a massive force in the top lane, able to snowball those 2 kills he got in the early game. And if RNG are looking to experiment now, try and get LetMe the extra experience he really needs heading into playoffs so he can be a constant top lane threat, I feel like this game definitely achieved all of those goals.
Yeah, it's definitely a very special way RNG does execute this composition. If you look at it, it could actually go for a 4-1. It could actually go for a straight teamfight comp as well. So there's a lot of versatility from Bandpick, from the way they can play it, but they are choosing to hone in their skills as a 1-3-1 team.
Yeah, TOP though, it was a rough gig for them, unfortunately. They're trying to hold up to an exceptionally strong early game team in terms of talent, very difficult for them. Also running Goong in this game as well. They still have Marin, by the way, in the back waiting to try and get onto the field. So maybe we'll see some swap-ups from them as well, but really just trying to get all of these members time on the field right now.
Yeah, definitely, and I really applaud Goon for having his time. Like, he was collateral damage, like we said. XX sitting out means he had to sit out as well, and I just hope that they can train all of their positions well. Lies needs to get better, Goon needs to get better, and TOP as a whole, they need a 10-man roster.
And they also still have more time in this series as well to practice against a top team like RNG. For now, though, we are going to send it back to the analyst desk.
Rez, can you find a list of burn centers in Shanghai? Because I think Clement just burned TOP with that call out there. Woo! But still, that was a pretty rough game.
Yeah, it was rough. The sad fact of it is they do actually have a 10-man roster.
They do!
So that's the sad thing. So here's the thing. You're right. Ultimately, they got outplayed in about every lane. But RNG didn't even make it seem like that was the case just because of how often they were roaming in the top side of the map. So Goong had it rough because there were 3 members at his lane at all times. It felt like when his flash was up, he had to immediately use it because there was a Sejuani ulti coming his way. And of course the Camille, who was constantly looking for a hook shot.
Yeah, and though we did see some good attempts from TOP to try to get back into the game, namely the Blitzcrank catches people's attention, RNG showed, hey, we're a team of superstars. We can absolutely dodge a Blitzcrank hook on reflex.
Yeah, that may be the case, but it also ultimately comes down to a little bit of skill on that one. I think the first flash hook that went awry, he was overthinking it. It was way too far to the left. So I don't usually look to mechanics on towards Blitzcrank, but that was him overthinking it that instance if you take a look back on it. And that cost them a lot because, of course, that was a level 2 gank that they were looking to get ahead on that one. And at that point forward, Blitzcrank didn't hit much. Not a lot of opportunities to do so. In fact, as the lane went on, he wasn't going to do it just because it was Kog'Maw and Karma who were in a very powerful position within the lane. If he got a hook on towards Karma, or if she would have walked up and looked to snare down the AD carries. So I felt like they were doomed at around level 4, level 5 because they were just going to get outmatched, and the Blitzcrank didn't have the flash.
Yeah, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. You hit him, oh no, now the Kog'Maw's in my face and he's going to be hitting me. If you don't hit him, then they just keep on harassing and poking out more and more. And we actually commented a little bit during the game on the Kog'Maw build, and it seemed like RNG knew what they wanted to go for. Uzi taking the rapid fire second after Gwynsu's as compared to the Blade of the Ruined King or the Runan's Hurricane or even the Static Shiv because he knew he wanted to be at range hitting people from afar. Yeah,
because there was, you already mentioned the range that was available, and he's not too worried about the wave clear just because they had the 1-3-1 solidified with Sion and the Camille and side lanes. So at that point, he just had to focus on the mid lane matchup, and they were so far ahead. At that point, they were about 10k gold in lead. So there was no wrong decision. He just had to focus on the team fighting, and he was able to outplay these team fights very well.
And that's where we saw the 1-3-1 sort of come into effect because that Kog'Maw could freely farm in the mid lane and just consume all of the gold that RNG fed him, while Xiaohu, he was just a robot in the top lane.
And he was a robot.
He was. And the Camille on the other side we did not get to see the robot Camille. Instead, she was just harassing nonstop against Lies, who finally makes his return for the first time since Marin joined the roster, only to go up against that.
Yeah, just a Preston session. At that point, it was just... Here's the funny thing about this. When you are getting pushed in on 2 sides of the map and you couldn't really contest for either side of the map, or at least getting defensive vision on blue side or red side jungle, then it comes to a point where is this all going to come to awry? And people out there, this replay is about to showcase it. Because ultimately, it just comes down crashing in the mid lane. Because guess what? Sandwich, baby. That is literally an Oreo.
3 directions. RNG come flying out of the woodwork. If you were in the bathroom, if you were getting a cup of water or something, like I was, and the game just exploded open, this is what you missed.
Yeah, and it just showcased how strong of a vision control RNG had on both sides of the map, that they did not see this one coming. So TOP, at least he got half his... Oh, they actually killed him.
He flashes into the hook instead of over it. Here. You've missed them all game. Let me help you.
Yeah.
And then he leaps in.
The only thing they get off that. So fun game for RNG. Really, going back to the fact that they're playing Kog'Maw. He's doing well in lane. So if you're TOP and if you're actually trying to find an early game stance, I would say move away from not so much the Blitzcrank focus, but move away from Azir. I would say Azir, they know that Xiaohu plays Sion in those scenarios. Try find a strong mid laner, because a lot of the times, if you're losing out in the mid lane matchup that heavily versus Sion, which Azir does lose very heavily in that, and you try to pile up 2v2 in that instance, RNG is a good enough team to pile more members in there and put more resources into the Sion basket so they can gain that first tower. They were able to do that.
Yeah, and of course, before the game, we heard from Ming saying we might see something new from RNG, something a little wild and crazy. This is about as safe and standard RNG
I didn't see
as it possibly can get. Oh no, Uzi's on Kog'Maw. How on earth did this happen?
There are 2 ways you can do it right now if you're RNG, and if you know that WE is in your sights in playoffs. You either play something new and say, hey, we're just experimenting, there's nothing to see here. You're going to take this one seriously? Ha! Who cares? Or you can just play super standard, and you're like, well, I mean, we're not going to deny them from a Kog'Maw pick. They can just go towards like a Varus, which they've gone through all split lungs. So if you're WE, if you're looking to take notes in this game, you've already taken the notes all season long.
They play standard. MVP for that game 1 goes to Let Me on his Camille. He was the guy who started off most of these big engages. I say most of these big engages, the 3 big engages we had over the entire game.
90%! And sure, that's just 9 of the kills that they've had, but that just showcases how standard they played, how strong of a vision control they played, because TOP felt so constricted they couldn't start a fight for themselves. Every play Let Me was a part of because he was always looming over the mid lane. So it was like, okay, I guess if we're TOP, we're going to start a fight here. Oh, just kidding.
Oh,
the
no, there's
Camille's
Camille.
already
Yeah. A bit of a tragedy when Spider-Man Let Me leapt into the action, not to save, but to kill. Ooh, a terrible villain. Anyways, we're going to go and take a quick break. Game 2's coming at you in just a few.